do the work that others won't. You chop wood, you carry water, and you keep doing it until you get better at it. Once we stop being a victim of our own mindset, then we can be free of that prison. And once we are free of that prison and we unshackle ourselves from these restraints, then we can start excelling because we no longer have that dead weight that's holding us back.
So we talked about some things that are not dead, namely outbound is not dead, right? And we've talked about a few versions of outreach, but the one thing that we haven't talked about yet is cold calling. And so cold calling is not Mandy or my absolute expertise. I did enough cold calling in my days because it was a necessity, but I would rather bring in an expert. And so today we have a very special guest, a very, very good friend of both Mandy and mine. He is going to tell us all about cold calling. He's been doing it for a very long time. He is the first person that we thought of to want to talk about this topic. And he is my very good friend, Riley Blaisdell. Yeah. Okay. As you. And right now you are a risk advisor at Collier, which means you are selling.
Yeah.
Yes. You are advising while you sell.
Consulting.
You do a lot of consulting and advising. We've talked about what you do a lot, and there's so much education and consulting in what you do. So it would be remiss of us to say that it was just selling, but at the end of the day, you are helping bring revenue into the business.
Yeah.
And so one of the ways I know you do that, not just at this company, but other roles you've had in the past, is cold calling. Okay. So first question, why have you had cold calling be one of your tried and true methods for selling?
So first of all, before I really dive into that, I believe that there's not one way to get a hold of somebody, but there's a bunch of different ways. This just happens to be one of those tools that can reach somebody. And some people prefer to be reached by the phone. Some people prefer written communication. Some people prefer in person. Some people prefer smoke signals. However you want it to happen, like, that's how I'm going to reach you. But one of my first roles when I was like 16, 17, I was doing telemarketing and punching those phone numbers in.
Manually?
And then lifting up the receiver.
A real phone?
Yeah.
With a cord on it?
With a cord.
With a cord.
Like this one, but it's curly.
With curly.
With
the type of that certain plug. I don't even know what you call it, but the plastic with the little
cable. So I was doing that, and we didn't even have like a CRM or anything like that. We would get a list of paper with names on it, phone numbers, and all that
cross
stuff.
out.
Yeah, dial it, cross it out. And then I started noticing really quickly that we were calling some of the same numbers. And then what I started doing is asking if I could keep the paper. Because what we would do is we'd have to turn it in at the end of the day. And then they would trash them. And so what I started doing is I started taking notes of anybody that I called. And I'd write it down. And it'd be like little things that were silly. So it would be like what time they're going to actually be available, or the best time that they actually are there. Who lives in that household. Little things that they really like, because now that information becomes a conversation that I can have with them.
Right. You have a follow-up that you can use with context. What do you think roughly were the amount of calls you had to make a day in that first role?
It was like working at a sweatshop, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
You just dialed nonstop.
Who knows how many?
And you just kept going. And I mean, I was 16, 17 around that time. And one thing that I remember, like, being at that role is I would have these blue Powerades. And at the time, they would have blueberry vodka filled with it and blueberry Powerade. And that's how we got through the day.
That's how I got through the day. This was a long... Folks, for those of you old enough out there, we were allowed to do some wild shit back in the day. When I worked at the first startup, we actually ended up having to be like, we cannot have hard alcohol before 12 o'clock. Then it was like, okay, so then like beer and wine.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
This place didn't really have rules like...
Right.
I mean, you're 16, 17 years old. There's a lot of people that you're working with that are a wide range of different ages, and what you were really doing is just trying to get people to take the call and transfer it to our salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
and then you would get paid per transfer,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
people would hustle and scam those transfers
Mm-hmm.
because the way things were tracked back then. But it was just such a weird environment and setup. Like it, it's the boiler room. It's the
Yeah,
boiler
it
room. Like
was.
it was.
Well, that still exists in certain ways today, right? I mean, it's all about like what you're saying there, besides the legal things, was unrealistic expectations and goals that were being set, right? And I feel like in the topic of cold calling, that can occur a lot. There are a lot of the people that listen to this podcast though are people who are trying to build or maintain their own business. And so, from that perspective, now that you've evolved through the different, ideally more legal roles that you've had, now let's talk a little bit about what does cold calling look for you like more day to day in today's environment.
Usually, I'm working on 20 different new leads per week,
Okay.
and so I'm calling at least 20 new people. And you're probably calling more because the contact information isn't correct, the person in the position. Granted, we have one of those data tools that you can pull the information, but even
Mm-hmm.
the information that's available there isn't even accurate.
Right. It's never
Yeah.
100%.
And the position that I'm in too is that person may not really be the person that moves the needle.
Right.
You might have to have a different team that is actually going to move the needle. So your buyers or your decision makers can vary. It's really solving a puzzle, right?
Yeah.
First and foremost, and building that border, and then you can start figuring out, do all these pieces belong, and does this even make sense?
Yeah. And so it sounds more like instead of the boilerplate, just numbers game before and try to get anyone to just talk to you any means necessary. Now you're doing it from a more strategic standpoint. And it sounds like, if I may infer, you're not having that same goal of like, must get you to say yes to something, but more like, does this lead me to a next step?
Yeah, I'm probably trying to disqualify them more than they're disqualifying me
Yeah.
on the call. Whether they're the real decision maker or not, that's first of all what I'm trying to figure out. Just because they don't answer the question properly or they don't want to give me their time doesn't mean I'm really talking to the right person. Because a lot of us want to seem more important than we are, and that's not just in this role. That's in every role I've been in. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people identify as the decision maker, and then when it comes down to like putting the name on there, right? Like signing the paperwork, you find out that it's not them and it's somebody else, or depending on the size of the organization, it could be a bunch of people that are involved in this decision making process.
Not only is it about accuracy of getting their information and, and maybe finding the right person to really talk to get a deal going. How many times do you feel like you're calling someone nowadays too to actually even connect with them? Because it's harder and harder to get through with all the different things that we keep implementing. I mean, the latest thing that Apple did, right, was like now sometimes you have to state your name in case before they'll. So like how often now on average do you feel like you might have to call a number before you get to a connect versus maybe even 5-ish years ago?
I think a lot of people are gatekeeping more, right? Because
Yeah.
you have a lot more people that are using automated tools, so you have more people calling them about many different things. Like I'll be calling about their health care, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their employee benefits. And I'm one of probably 100 people that are calling about the employee benefits. But that same person could also be making decisions on what kind of toilet paper do we buy for this office, right?
Yeah.
What kind of payroll provider do we use? The amount of things that people are being sold
Yeah.
is overwhelming
Yeah.
and is a lot of noise and is causing a lot of traffic that's congesting everything, and so people are like getting off these on ramps and they're leaving and they're going on the back roads. So sometimes the cold call is not even the way to get in there. Again, back to what I stated earlier, sometimes it's that in-network place that I've been to where I met someone and they're like, oh yeah, give me a call, here's my contact information, and that number that you receive there is completely different than the numbers that you've been calling or that are even available in these tools.
What I'm hearing is, albeit cold calling is a strong suit of yours, it's all about how you use it in a multi-channel outreach approach, which is what we've been talking about for the last few episodes, right? It's more about more all bound approach, not just one, right? Or even a couple. Okay, we're going to shift gears a teensy bit into like kind of some rapid fire answers. Cold calling. What are some of the pros of it that you don't get from other outreach methods?
Speed to market
Okay.
is one of those things, right? You can email blast, but that's a different kind of speed to market. But what I think I love the most about cold calling that you're probably not going to get is that when people hear your voice, they really feel a different, like a person is on the line, not a robot. They can
Right.
hear your accent and they can kind of guess where you're from, where you live in the world. That kind of connection right there allows you to have a deeper conversation with somebody. And if you can understand the person on the other end of the phone, you can go into deeper conversations. For example, like I call nationally still to this day. There's different areas in the United States that are going to operate a little bit differently. So you call down south, they're going to be a little bit slower. They're going to be a lot more chatty, or they're going to have deeper conversations before you even get to the main menu, right? Like
Sure.
to the main cuisine. But you're going to call up there in New York and everything, and they're going to be,
You better get to the point.
yeah, you call up here in the Pacific Northwest, a lot of passive aggressiveness. A lot of passive aggressiveness. It's the courtesy or the kindness of the Pacific Northwest. That's the just email me something, and that doesn't really work.
No. Is that what we call it now? Yeah. There's a snobbery around the Pacific Northwest that sometimes happens, I think. Okay, I love that. And then what do you think that you miss out on if you focus too much on cold calling and not other things too?
You can miss out on a ton of things. Not everybody wants to be reached by phone. Not everybody answers the phone. My phone's usually on DND.
Right.
And
You're
Megan
not reaching me.
hates that, right? Like, there's people that don't want to have that call come in, but if I meet you in an in-person place, that's going to open up the conversation. Maybe that email that I sent you, maybe that piece of education about some sort of law change, like the FSA, HSA increase that's happening, that might be something that ends up touching you where you're going to have a conversation. But I want to meet you on the channel that you want to be met on. So if you prefer to be met on emails, let's email. You want to do a video call? Let's do a video call. Whatever makes the most sense for the person that I want to talk to, for them, I want to meet them where they want to be met at.
Top 3 no-nos that you would suggest about cold calling.
Being rude as fuck, right? Like, I think people forget that there's a human on the other end of the phone, right? That's your paycheck. I get it. Like, we're all trying to make our money. We're all trying to pay our bills. Like, I have a family to provide for, right? But just because somebody is rude to me on the other end doesn't mean I'm going to be rude back. And I don't want to hold that energy for the next call because they can feel and sense that. So I would say manners is important. So if you have bad manners, get out of here.
Manners matter.
Somebody that is desperate, right? They can sense that and feel that. And here's the thing. If you don't like cold calling, you still are going to have to do stuff that you don't like. You can get better at it. And so I think when people have like that mental mindset of saying, I'm not good at cold calling, well, you're fucking right. You're not good at cold calling because you told yourself that. So how do you get better at it?
Yeah.
You do the work that others won't. You chop wood, you carry water, and you keep doing it until you get better at it. Well, what happens if I don't have that time? What happens if I don't have the call list to be able to do it? Why don't you cold call one of your friends and talk to them and see how that conversation transpires, and then realize like that energy you ended up doing when you cold called your friend to have a simple conversation about nothing, like that same energy, pick up the phone, call somebody that you really want to reach, carry that energy on over to the next.
So that almost leads me into the next question, which was like 3 do's. So like the 3 don'ts you just said is, don't be rude. Okay. Don't be an asshole. So manners matter. Don't go into a desperation,
Yeah.
right? Which is a lot easier said than done, but it's a big no-no because that's a good sales advice piece, period, right? When you're desperate in your sales process, it's known, it's felt, it changes the way you approach. And then third is don't tell yourself that you're not good at it. Do something actionable to get better. And so my next last question before we walk into our tactical takeaway is the top 3 things you do suggest doing with cold calling.
Pick up the phone, right? The easiest thing to do is pick up the phone and make the call. Because guess what? You're probably going to get a voicemail anyways. So,
so don't worry about it. No one's answering the phone most likely.
Why are you stressing about, like, oh, I can't cold call? Like, I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to leave voicemails. You're going to feel like you didn't get anything accomplished because you left a bunch of voicemails that day. But guess what? You are putting in the work that matters because now you're building familiarity.
Yeah.
The other do is when you get somebody on the phone and they tell you to call back another day, ask for clarification on that time frame and that date. Make sure you make that call, because one of the things that is so hard about this thing that we're doing is we don't want to seem like we're a nuisance. But if somebody said, hey, you know what, Riley, give me a call back next week on Tuesday. Hey, what's the best time for me to give you a call? Is it the morning or the night or the afternoon, right? I get a little bit of clarification. If I can't pin down the time, a little bit goes a long way. Now what I can do is call them back on that same time. They may not answer. It may be a reason that they're just trying to blow me off. But if I follow up on the time frame that they said and they pick up the phone or they don't answer, at least I followed through what I said I was going to do.
Right.
And that builds that trust to really have a conversation another day.
So true. That's so true. Because when you tell someone something to like, hey, I'm going to follow up with you, even if it's an email and then you never do, or, you know, that just shows, okay, either you have a terrible sales process or I don't try. Like, it's the same thing with voicemail that you said something earlier. It may not have been your top 3 do's, but it sounds like you're a fan of voicemail. There, I know that's a big debate. Leave a voicemail, don't leave a voicemail.
I think it depends on who you're calling, the voicemail, what it says on the voicemail, right? Like if you're calling and you don't know if it's the right person, because like let's be
honest with cold calling,
right? Like some of these numbers, we don't know if they're the right person in the voicemail that's set up.
Right.
They're not leaving any information. Maybe it's just their phone number. Maybe it's a different name attached to the voicemail when you're leaving it. But like I'll even leave a voicemail and say, hey, you know, this is Riley with Collier. I'm trying to get a hold of Ben. But the voicemail says that they're sent me on over to Becky. Becky, if this is not the right phone number to reach Ben at, please give me a call back. And here's my phone number. And I leave my cell phone. Because at least they can hear my voice. And they can create a picture of somebody that's real on the other end.
Yeah.
That connection.
Okay. And the third of your top do's.
Third top do for cold calling. Be empathetic. And the reason why I think that's important is because we don't know what somebody is actually dealing with on the other side of the phone. One of my favorite cold calling stories I have is I was cold calling this company for a while. I don't know how long it was. And I finally got this guy to answer the phone. And the time he answered his phone, he was in the doctor's office. He just found out he had cancer. He shared it with me while he was on the phone. He said, look, now's not a good time. I said, is everything okay? And he said, I actually just found out I had cancer. And I said, I'm sorry to hear about that. I tell you what, is it okay if I call you back in a couple hours just to check to see how you're doing? I don't give a shit about these gloves. I want to know how you're doing as a person. And he was like, yeah, like, that's okay, right? He gave me permission, so I called back. I didn't get him on the phone, but I said I was going to do this.
Yeah.
I did it. And eventually, like, I ended up getting him down on the phone, and, like, he was, like, going through it all, you know, like, through the whole cancer. He was dealing with it. He was dealing with chemo. He was battling. He was fighting. He changed his diet, all this stuff. And it was just really neat to hear that he was working on this. And I was actually in a position to be able to hear that he had a challenge that he had going on ahead. And I was able to have a conversation, another date with him to see how he was doing.
Yep.
I never sold him gloves, by the way.
So it didn't turn out to be your biggest deal ever. It just shows why it matters to be empathetic first, even in cold calling. Okay, so as always, we always like to wrap up with a tactical takeaway. So for people who either, doesn't matter if they want to try cold calling out or they do already cold call, but they're looking for something that they can take away and go try to apply immediately to improve their cold calling. What do you got?
I think it goes back to being empathetic. So the story that I shared about that person having cancer is like, keep that in mind. You don't realize what somebody's going through on the other end of the call. Like, they don't live to work all day, right? They have a life outside of it. It's someone's mother, it's someone's father, it's someone's sister, it's someone's brother. It could be yours, right? And if you remember that they are just a human on the other end, you're not going to feel so bad when they hang up on you and they tell you that they're in a meeting. Because for some reason, people like to answer their phone to
in meetings.
they're in meetings. Hey, I'm in a meeting. Now's not a good time.
Now's not a good time. I'm going to answer the phone when it's not a good time, but when it is a good time, I'm not going to answer the phone. No, I think that's a really important one because it sounds like, and I would have to agree, because while I don't think I'm the best cold caller, I certainly have done it and I've certainly been effective at doing so. And it was all from more about my mindset, right? Into how I went into it. So it sounds like our tactical takeaway from you is really, in this whole message to get, in the whole episode, is a lot to do with empathy, kindness, and patience, and just remembering that we're humans, because this is one of those types of tactics or sales outreaches that I think we like to dehumanize a lot, because being the receiver of cold calling, we tend to get very irritated about it. And that's why it gets very scary to be the one doing the cold calling. But if we change the mindset, it can change a lot.
Once we stop being a victim of our own mindset, then we can be free of that prison. And once we are free of that prison and we unshackle ourselves from these restraints, then we can start excelling, because we no longer have that dead weight that's holding us back. And I mean, I even struggle with cold calling to this day, because
Right.
I don't want to be hung up on. I don't want to offend somebody. But what I do want to do is provide for my family. So I'm going to pick up the phone.
We're going to pick up the phone anyway. Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to do what others won't, so I could get the results that others have that I want. And I'm okay with sounding like a dummy on the phone, because it humanizes me to other
Yeah.
people.
Well said. Couldn't say it better myself. That's why we had you on. All right. So that is our cold calling episode for you all. And the next episode, we are going to talk a little bit more around what to do now with trying to build now your pipeline, because there's this big, and I know you can relate to this, there's this big whole thing now about like, what do we actually allow into the pipeline?
Not poopy stuff.
Not poopy stuff. You're right. Thank you so much for being our guest. And we would have had Waffles on too, which is Riley's adorable bully, but he's kind of distracting.
He's a butthead.
Well, no, he's adorable. And like, I don't think we would have gotten anything actually done if we let him be the other guest. So you'll have to follow Riley on the socials, because Waffles makes an appearance. All right, everyone. See you later.
Okay, now go build something cool. And if you can't figure out what's holding back your revenue, grab our free Hidden Revenue Finder GPT at yourfuturebiz.com/revenue.
If you like what you hear, or at least didn't hate it, hit that follow or subscribe button so you don't miss an episode.
And just like that, another business problem got a little clearer. Because in the business world, it's not about who raises first.
It's about who lasts.